Some of us went to the Heartland conference, so we're going to share what we learned.
One of the sessions I went to was on creating videos for the students in the classroom. And something I learned that I didn't know, so I thought I would share with everybody, is that if you type PWN in the front of the YouTube link, so when you get a YouTube link after the www, if you'll type PWN, it will give you options to download your file into an MP4 format so that you can then edit it. So what our session guide was doing was taking some different commercials. He had his students taking some different commercials and kind of re-editing them, and maybe to give a little bit of a different message. Like they had, this is kind of a scary looking picture actually. This was a Dove commercial, and I guess the company that owns Dove also has Axe, the brand Axe. So they're kind of two different spectrums, because Dove is like, you don't have to be beautiful, you're beautiful as you are, and Axe says you've got to wear Axe so that people will think you're beautiful. So his students took some commercials from Dove and Axe and kind of combined them, and so it was kind of cool. Anyway, so I thought I would share that because I didn't know that, and thought maybe some of you might be interested in
At the
doing that.
front, where's the front, like?
After the www, so you can't really see it on here, but just right before YouTube.
So
And then you
www.pwn
PWN,
YouTube.
mhm.
And
And
that's
then
something
it-
that YouTube is okay with, or allow you to do, or whatever. I mean, that's their thing.
I think it depends on how whoever's loaded it. It will only let you if they've given it those rights. Yeah.
Now, I thought he said don't download FLV to be sure we do.
Right. Yeah. It's the MP4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just don't listen to it as, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He
Yeah.
did tell us don't do it as an FLV. You can't edit those. So the MP4 is the one that you would want to do. Just something interesting there, I thought. And then the other session I went to was on, well, actually it was on universal design for learning for accessibility, which is what I thought we would be learning a lot about, is how to design for that. But what I found in listening to what they were saying is that really all of these principles apply no matter what you're designing. So, they just remind us to create many opportunities for practice and repetition, so that students don't just see something once and never see it again. Lots of different ways of using what they've learned. This one I thought was real important, allowing students to express their knowledge in different ways, because not everybody's alike. So, when we're designing things, to make sure we remember that, offer people different ways of doing things. And then also think of ways to stimulate your students' interest in the subject. So just because we've been doing this assignment the same way for 5 years doesn't necessarily mean that it works for the students. So just be aware of what may get those students thinking. And I use the little smiley faces because if we do this, we'll have happy students.
Oh. One of the sessions that I went to, you see the name of it here at the bottom, with this group. Only one guy really spoke, but it was how to make and edit an iMovie using your iPad, which was really cool, okay? So I would be able to tell you more, but
Tell them why you can't.
I can't tell you because I left just a few minutes early for the last little bit of instructions and a few drawings, and my name was drawn, and you had to be present to win, and I missed winning an iPad mini. So I'm still very sad about that. And but we did, Gwen had her iPad there with us, and it's very, for somebody who doesn't have an iPad, and for somebody that I'm really not a technology person.
Very good.
It's about downloading iMovie. It's a $5 app, and it was so easy. You really didn't need a whole lot of explanation. Okay.
Yeah.
And then after you get it there, you can add in other pictures. You can add in music, all those kinds of things. And what they talked about really with that, and the things that I thought about, as Jody was talking to us before, you've been in the sessions about creating those introductory kind of statements to your students. And then in another session that I went to, that several times they said this, that instead of writing remarks on a paper, video record something and send it to them that way, and that way it's more like you're interacting with them. And one of the things that one person said was it also cuts down or cuts into any barriers that you may have regarding gender or ethnicity or those kinds of things, because you're not turning back a paper that have a lot of marks on it that that may be offensive to them, or they may take a little bit more personally than what they should, but talking them through that would be a good thing. So Gwen and I made a little iMovie and stuck some pictures of her granddaughter in it. Stuck some pictures of her granddaughter in it, and then some other things, and put some, so, and it's very easy to edit once you get in there, just, it's, all touch and.
Do the iPads in this area have that iMovie on it?
We're going to put on all 10 of the checkout.
So we can mess around with it.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
It's hand, there's pictures.
So, and I thought it was very user-friendly, even though I personally don't have an iPad, that I could have any. So,
Sorry.
how much time do I have? Did she really just?
You got about 2 minutes left.
She did bring it up.
There
Well,
were
that's
people
why I
at the
was talking
table.
about-
Tempest Fugit.
There were people at the table who were crying almost because you weren't there. It was something. Some of the
Yeah,
folks
we were
there.
sad.
Okay, for some reason, this first line separated the T from the don't down there. I don't know what happened there. But the second, one of the other sessions that I went to several, but this is another one that I really thought was very helpful. Again, the ladies down below, basically only one lady spoke. But the first thing that I learned is that we are very blessed that we have the situation that we have with this online learning center right here. Because the first thing that she said is if you don't have an instructional designer or whatever Jody's appropriate title is, then you have to learn how to do this yourself. And so this is what she created for herself because she didn't have someone. She went through, she has a template that she created to how to set up an online course and some things. And it's trial and error that she has gone through to come up with some of the things. And so she had a long list, and I actually gave her my card to have her send us the template because I was just interested in that. But these were the three things that there were so many of them, but this is what I narrowed it down to, these three things here. The first one I thought was just really interesting. Their program is a different program than ours, but it's set up where unless the student does the assignment, it doesn't turn on the next stuff. And so even if and she said she doesn't take late work, and so even if they miss the deadline, then they still have to do the assignment to turn on the next section. And so I thought about that. I haven't taught yet online, but I thought about it for just my traditional classes as well, because I thought, because things build one upon the other, if they don't do it, so anyway, and I don't know even if we have those capabilities or anything like that, but I just thought it was, because we asked her if you had to do that manually, but her system sets that up one to the next. So that was interesting. The next thing that I thought was interesting there was that, we have moved to the My Courses format, and we put all of our stuff out there now. We're used to when we print our syllabus and put a course schedule and that kind of thing. She said it's also good to go ahead and put all of that in a PDF format because there are some students that still want to have that and handle it. And I thought, well, that's even good for us because that way I can just file that away instead of, right now I just print all my pages, pages from my courses to show what's out there. But this way, you have that kind of format. So I thought that was good. And then this other one I thought was very interesting too, and I thought a great idea because with students, and again, I haven't taught online, but she said with her online students, when she refers them to an article that's in the library, and even if she links them there, then they have to put in their username and their password, to get into it. And she said some people, if their password doesn't work, all that, then they get frustrated with it and they just stop. And so she said, even though you put those links out there, she just goes ahead and embeds whatever she's pulled off of the library into her My Courses page, so there's never an excuse of why they can't get anything that she wants them to read or anything like that. So, and also it's just that, again, that accessibility, sometimes it, it's just one more barrier for them, one more thing that they can complain about. And so opening that up is helpful.
I was, just some of the things that I took away were some of those things that Michael Wesch, oops, should be a C in there, shouldn't it? Michael Wesch said in that sort of opening keynote, and I was really fascinated with the play that he did with the word knowledgeable as in terms of knowledge able. And I was sharing this with my wife, and of course she didn't like it, but she was saying that he probably got it backwards. It should have been knowledgeable would be the ability to work with it, and knowledge able means you just know where to go find the facts. So she would have wanting to do it the other way around. But I was really struck by that, just talking about the accumulation of facts, but about our need to make students knowledge able. And then just a couple of other quotes from things he said. A sense of wonder is the greatest thing we can give to students. And wonder flourishes where we feel inspired and safe. Then, because we only had two things up here, then the same, the one that Mel just talked about, no, that's on my next one. This was one of the seminars entitled, Think Like a Writer. Let's see, what was the thing? Okay. A couple of ladies that worked for a commercial company. Of course, I tend not to like to go to those because often they're sales pitches. But these were people that work for the U.S. government and do training programs for FEMA and other kinds of organizations. And their particular seminar was on developing or writing scenarios that you might use. And she talked about, and she has some examples of what they use them as bookends, kind of a case study sort of thing, except that they have the end of the story. So they would write the beginning of the story, and then the end, and then the student discussion would be in the middle. The one scenario that that played for us, video scenario, had to do with finding the children who were separated from their parents and families in the aftermath of Katrina. And they had the story of the last girl who was separated about 6 or 8 months from her parents. She was over spending some time with a godmother, and the godmother, that family got taken to Atlanta, and her parents got taken to, I forget where it was, Houston or somewhere, and they tried to contact each other, and neither side knew if the other had survived Katrina at all. And she said we developed that story because we wanted the FEMA people sitting there to say, this will not happen on my watch. And then they showed the end of the story, the girl being reunited. But you didn't know that that's going to happen really until the end of the story. So it was kind of neat, and I thought her thinking and encouraging us to think in terms of a writer where we, and they took us through the kind of the creative, the novel thing of starting with the plot, the moment that you and I forget the exact word, but when the inciting incident that sort of starts the story, and then the building toward a climax and the giant moment, and then you kind of pull all the things together. It was just, I thought, well done. And she actually made her presentation online available. And I thought I would bring it up, but I can't see it on here. Yeah. So just very well done, I thought. And somewhere we could cover the page through it. Yeah. So she did kind of like a story, but very well done. Yeah. And again, they do work with FEMA, with the Defense Department, and so forth. Then the one that Melanie was in, this creating e-learning environments. And one of the things that I really took away was something that I guess it was affirmation of what Jody is kind of preaching to here, that all of our courses should have a pretty standard look to them so that students are used to working to it. And I hear that thing, I teach for a couple of other schools as well, and a couple of those really preach it as well, that the students, for them to come in and have to learn all over again how a course is organized and where to find due dates and so forth, just creates extra time for them, and some students just never. So the whole thing of standardizing formats, making sure that if you have a reading assignment due, it's due the same day every week. Don't make a reading assignment due on Tuesday one week and Thursday another week, but have it due the same time. Make sure your instructions are pretty well standardized, and the whole idea of clear expectations that were in the students. But I thought it was a really good seminar, a reminder of some things that we're already doing, and maybe just a reminder to keep on doing some things, and maybe to tell Jody thanks once in a while.
I'm following up on what we heard a little bit about the wonder and whatever.
Oh, she spelled his name out.
From knowledgeable to knowledge able. Sometimes that's not enough anymore. We need to inspire that sense of wonder in students, and he presented 3 ways that we can do that. One is through quest, give them a freedom to learn, make learning authentic, engage students' passions and what they really are wanting to be involved in. And then the second one was to invite connections, collaboration. Everyone is a knower, and he said sometimes the person that may be the best teacher is the one who just learned it. So have students collaborate and generate knowledge together. And then embrace their vulnerability, and give them a freedom to fail. Sometimes we learn a lot from our mistakes, and let students know that that's okay. And they move from the kind of whatever moment to whatever, I can do it, I can, or I can find the means, the resources to get there. And I liked his quote there. Computer is the most amazing machine or the biggest distraction device ever created. So we need to embrace technology.
I didn't hear him say that. I didn't believe or what? Did you hear him say that?
I said it, I think, twice.
Well,
Were you there?
That was when you were drafting.
I did.
And the next one was apping the MBA classroom. They provided, this was at UCO, they provided their MBA classes with 16 gigabyte Wi-Fi iPads. And then they provided them with little training packets that were provided also to the faculty. And the student usage, there's some percentages there, you know how like stats. 50% had never used a tablet before, 60% used it every day during the program, they really loved it. And then 77.5% used it 2 to 3 days per week for their coursework. And then at the end of the program, or at the end of one semester I should say, 77% rated themselves at least reasonably knowledgeable on, reasonably like that, on the iPad. The benefits, there was a quick access, all the things that we know about the iPad, and we're trying to know if yet.
You'll get to know now.
Anyway, and they never had to cancel class. Since they use the iPads, they can meet virtually and do all kinds of things, so they didn't have to worry about weather. Their favorite apps are listed there, Notability they used for note-taking. And there was one lady in the session that said, I'm the old-fashioned type. I like to take, write out my notes. And I'm like, you can do it on the iPad. You can do that.
That's good.
So Dropbox, AirPlay, Smart Office 2 for their office apps, FaceTime for their meetings outside, and then iMessage to connect and talk with one another. And then they used Puffin as opposed to Safari because it supports Flash on the iPad, and then Keynote for that's a really good thing. And then the speaker, Dr. Epstein, said that new technology should not substitute for something you're already doing, but should be used for students to invent something new. New resources allow them to go beyond what they would normally do in the classroom, and so we should be encouraging that.
This is a gentleman that teaches at OCU, and he teaches psychology, and so it was an abnormal psych course. And then I honestly don't remember the exact title of his second course that he was talking about, but I'll get to that in just a minute. But it has to do with like pseudoscience, like study of the abnormal, as opposed to hard science, is what is real and what is not, and the abstractions. And so the title itself, From 0 to 3,500 in a Year, the impact of students and their documentaries via YouTube, really started with his idea that so often his students would spend multiple hours, long periods of time, to do extensive research projects and write out research papers. And then he would read the research paper and turn it back to the student, or it would go into some sort of black hole of the internet storage spot. And that's it. It never gets seen again. And that they were doing some really incredible work and some things that he wanted to see some way to make those presentations and their learning live on. So he switched from doing a research paper to assigning his students in small groups, 2, occasionally 3, to do a 7 to 12 minute documentary. And they had to be a very well-researched documentary. They had to have lots of information. There had to be a lot of evidence that they understood the course material and put it into the course. So that's really his first course. The octopus in Lake Thunderbird is a myth. Now, I didn't know there was an octopus in Lake Thunderbird, so I will be going out there this weekend to check it out. Yeah. So the whole idea was that he assigned, this was the course that investigated the supernatural and then compared it against the scientific evidence to say, could that really be true or is that a myth? Well, just briefly, the octopus in Lake Thunderbird is a myth because all of the lakes in Oklahoma are man-made, and so
They're also dry.
they're also dry. So there's really no way for an octopus to have gotten to Oklahoma.
The octopus would be floating.
But he assigned local, he said, do local kinds of things. So one is the octopus in Lake Thunderbird. One is that Fort El Reno is haunted. Then there is I think it's in Guthrie. It used to be an old children's home. I think it's a Masonic lodge, lodge, not a lounge. A lounge. It too is supposed to be haunted. So he sent his students out and they interviewed people in the area, true believers, and then those who were not true believers. But then collecting the scientific evidence, like I said, they had to know that Oklahoma, their dry lakes, that Oklahoma was never covered in water, that everything was been dug out and filled. So that was a really interesting assignment. Then in his abnormal psychology course, history audit personalities in the office. Now, I can take that any direction I want at this point because I could be talking about my office, but he just happened to be talking about the sitcom The Office. So in groups of 2, his students were assigned a personality disorder using the DSM to diagnose. So they chose actual personality or actual diagnosis from the DSM. Then they had to really understand those diagnoses, and they went out and they could choose from a book, literature, TV, movie, any source they wanted to, a character that demonstrated those personality disorders. And then they had to show pieces of, okay, if it has to meet 5 of the 7 criteria to meet that particular personality disorder, in your video you need to show that you understand what that particular feature is and that you identify and can see that behavior in person. So they pull things up, and the one they chose was a histrionic personality, and I honestly have just recently started watching reruns of The Office, so I don't know this guy's name, but he's the boss on The Office, and if you're an Office fan, you'll know. Because things like he has to be the center of attention. They were able to show that. Had to be larger than, I mean, he was absolutely a perfect example of what it meant to be a histrionic personality. So that whole idea that research and for students to produce something that shares their research doesn't have to be a 15 to 20 page paper, cite your sources. They did those things, but they did it in a really unique way. Real quickly. Then the 35,000 is that then he posts those up on YouTube. And the first year he did it, obviously it was just his class students. They're now reaching up to 3,500 hits on those, 35,000 hits on those websites now. Because if you pull up like Oklahoma folklore or Oklahoma, you're very apt to pull up those kinds of things. If you want to know about the octopus in Lake Thunderbird, pull it up.
That's your time.
I only got to one slide.
No, go ahead and do your other slide. I was just letting you know that you're at your time.
Practice my speech, not good speech.
That's okay.
The next was a sales pitch, but it really affirmed, Laura, I'm gonna give you a hands up that the Smarter Measure is an incredibly valuable tool that we have at our disposal. The thing that this woman talked about is the fact that Smarter Measure doesn't measure intelligence, it doesn't measure, it measures what she calls grit. Of course, she was talking grits because she had this lovely Southern Georgian accent, so, but that tool in particular that we have access to, if you've not been using it for your online students, it really does give you some insight and help you to see the kind of student they are and who might need a little extra encouragement or help as they go through.
Her big idea is always connectivity to students and making sure we recognize where they are. So she actually was quite clever this year and used a Mumford & Sons theme. I won't go over that whole thing with you all, but I just want to hit some of her high points. Faculty, she's a full-time faculty at UCO, and she said, you know, universities probably worldwide you could find little pockets of faculty complaining about how the students aren't what they used to be. Administration isn't what it used to be. The content, everything isn't what it used to be. And she says, you're right, it's not, so deal with it. We can't change that. We have to just deal with where we are and what we have and make that work. So stop complaining about it and figure out what those students really need. She said, you know what, we can find ways to help our students and that actually won't hurt us and it won't hurt the class. It could make things better. It's not our job to make things more difficult for them. That shouldn't be a requirement for education. One of the things that I loved is that she said, their reality is our reality. We are on our iPhones in meetings. They are on their iPhone in class. We need 3 reminders from our dentist's office to come to an appointment. And yet we expect them to automatically meet and remember every deadline, which I thought was very interesting because Dennis sent out that article about, the professionalism from Hire. And I thought, as I was reading that, I thought, that goes right to her. Well, one of the things she uses is, I put it on my training document. It's called Sign Up Genius, and I'm going to mention it. I'll just skip it. I'll just tell you what it is now, and then I'll skip it when I get to it. She has Sign Up Genius, and she has them sign up. She said, I started using it for my kids' classroom stuff. One of the teachers had it, and so if we were supposed to bring something to a party, we used Sign Up Genius. She said, I looked at that, and I thought, I can use this in my class. So she would create a Sign Up Genius for an essay, and you would sign up to turn in your essay at 9 a.m., 9:30, 9:15, 10, 10:50, whatever, and if the papers were due by noon, she just had all these sign-up times before noon. She did never tell them the paper was due at noon. She said, these are your times to sign up to turn in your essay. 2 things came out of that. Number 1, students felt like they got to pick when their essay was due. Number 2, Sign Up Genius sends you an email reminding you when something is due. And she said her students loved it. They never knew that she was really still making them meet that 12 o'clock deadline, and they were actually turning it in early. They loved the idea that they had some control over submitting their work, and they loved the reminder emails. And she said she's really big, like she passes out Play-Doh in her classes, because she said, I'd rather have them have Play-Doh in their hands playing with that than have their phone in their hands social networking. Because I know if they've got Play-Doh in their hands, they're still listening. So that's what she makes you do during her session. So she's big on that kind of things, and her other statement is always, make stuff fun. It's not going to hurt you and it's not going to kill them. So one of the other things that she does for reminders is she uses like evites and invites them to tests and makes it like with the dog with a party hat on and streamers everywhere. And she said it's kind of crazy, and at first students think I'm nuts. She said, but they get the reminder and they love that they got a reminder. It might make them chuckle, and you won't have anybody walk into class saying, I didn't remember there was a test today, or I didn't know that this assignment was due. She said it takes me a couple of minutes to do it, and it doesn't cost me anything in the beginning, and it saves me time in the end. So I thought those were great. This connects to the show them you care. It's our job to help them understand why we're thinking and why our expectations are the way. We have to be the bridge builders We shouldn't just throw stuff out there and expect them to automatically understand why we expect things to be submitted a certain way, why we expect them to perform a certain way. We have to articulate those. The get our students to ponder. When I heard her say this, I really started thinking, I'm not sure I can do this in my online, but I am starting this in my face-to-face next week. We all know information is ubiquitous. When you are at dinner right now, and 5 seconds?
No, that was 5 minutes.
Okay, let me just finish this line. When you are at dinner right now, and if you want to know the answer to something, what do?
Google it.
You pull out your phone and you Google it. When you used to go to dinner as a kid, and you needed to know the state capital of something and your parents didn't know, what did you do?
Ask grandma.
But you thought about it for a little while before you asked grandma or you went to your encyclopedia. We don't require or allow students to think anymore. And she said it can look like they're detoxing. When you ask them a question in class and you say, do not open your computer and do not get out your phone. I want you to think. I want you to conjecture. And they've never had to do that before. So she said, when we have our students ponder, then they remember. The knowledge becomes part of who they are. Public and private, we may have those lines, but they don't, and so you're teaching in public whether you want to be or not. The last thing is click on this link, because everybody will have a link to this slideshow, right?
We can make that
Okay.
happen.
This lady is doing a lot of work on cooperative learning and social contracts, and that's her title, which just makes me laugh. Rejuvenating online group work tool. That contract right there, because I do group work in my online class, and inevitably I have someone who either takes over or someone who doesn't do anything. I felt like an idiot when she passed out that contract, and the lady next to me did too. We looked at each other and we were like, oh my gosh, we've been teaching this long. Why have we never thought of a contract like this? So I've made some notes on the bottom of both of my slides. She said she just wants attribution. So you can use her contract, you can modify it, just make sure you do Dr. Cobb on it, and she'll be happy with that. And she would love to know if anyone's using it, how it goes.
One of the sessions that I went to was Wes Fryer, and he talked about media in the curriculum was the title of his deal. And one of the things he started talking about was the pioneering spirit. And it was, why have we lost the pioneering spirit? You would leave St. Louis, you wanted to have someone there to guide you, but you were willing to jump into the unknown. Why have we lost our ability to do that? Hopefully you have people on campus that you can go to that will help lead you, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, this, I can think of some folks that, maybe we need to inspire some pioneering spirit. The other thing that he talked about was, he's talking about media, like visual media. More than 30,000 neurons for seeing, less than 1,000 neurons required for hearing. So when you're thinking about, you want to get students to think deeply, think about something with video. You're actually requiring more brain power. I don't know exactly where that research came from, so if someone's watching this or knows different, let me know. We should be making media creation the new normal. Instead of, it's a special occasion when we get to do, I'm thinking about public ed because it was like, ooh, it's technology day, we're getting the computers out. We should be making things like this the new normal. And then as Sheila was talking about, sharing, instead of reading the research paper and it goes in whatever file you have, you're sharing beyond the boundaries of your classroom. I guarantee you, if you tell your students that someone other than you are going to see, read, hear, watch, whatever, they're going to look at that project with very different eyes. I've been saying that for years, but that's another story. Any kind of media, technology, again, it's good pedagogy. You got to plan ahead. You got to think about the process. It's okay though if you don't know exactly what that process looks like, because probably if all of your students don't know what that process is going to look like, at least some of them are going to know better than you do. But you need to know what the steps are along the way. Rather than saying, go create a video, okay, I want you to sit down in small groups and think about the video and come up with 3 scenes, and I need a storyboard before you walk out of class today. And then what's the next piece? Instead of saying this video's due in 2 weeks and you just turn them loose, It's like have some little baby steps along the way. Oh, I'm right at halfway. The other thing, and really this is the easiest one because it's been mentioned twice by 2 other people, but creating an effective e-learning environment, I really appreciated what Dr. Moser had to say. A couple of things. She talked about diffusing the stigma that's attached to online rigor. A lot of folks are like, well, and even students, well, yeah, I can just get into an online class and knock that out in a couple of days or a few hours a week or whatever. We have to diffuse that. And so, we're purposely working towards that on our campus. Starting with a template that was mentioned already. And one thing that she said, I know that we have our template, but I hadn't really processed this. I'm going to create a Word document that has every component of that template. I'm going to also have that to give to the faculty. It'll be a part of the course. It's strictly for the faculty to have, where they can say, because for me, if I could print out this big long document and see everything instead of going click here, look at this assignment, go back to the front page. Click here, go to this assignment, go back to the front page. It's far easier for me to see everything laid out in one long line. Even if I have to scroll through a document, it's easier than building within Moodle. So you're building your course on this huge document, and then it's just plugging it in. And Sheila and I were talking about this the other day. If there's a time crunch, you've got the document built, I can go and plug stuff into assignments. But that way you can say all of my discussion board instructions look exactly the same. All of my journal looks exactly the same. Instead of having to go click on every journal and did I write those exactly the same. The other one that was really important to me from a pedagogy standpoint was work backwards if you need to. You know what your learning goals are, so start with your assignments, work backwards to your objectives, and then backwards to those learning goals to make sure that you're meeting those. But you should always have assignments that tie directly to objectives, and those objectives should tie directly to the learning goals for the course. I see lots of nodding heads, that's great.
I went to a session about academic integrity, which I'm always really interested in because I've said from the beginning, I think it lends credibility to our program, our online program, if we can do whatever we can, because it's just a fear that, and I don't want to be naive enough to think it's not happening, that people out there are taking classes for other people. So I'm always interested in that, to build what we can. So Florida Virtual Schools, have y'all heard of them? They're huge, huge, huge. And this gal was from there, and so she shared some of the things they do in their program. She started by asking us, why do students cheat? What is y'all's answer? Why?
Not enough time.
Not enough, that's one of them everybody shared.
Seems easier than doing it the right way.
Seems easier to do it. She said they usually work harder to cheat than if they had just done it. So some things are said, they get behind, the fear of failure, they think nobody really cares, that some have a pressure for that high GPA, things like that. So then she said, what are you doing to prevent cheating at your school? And I really appreciated how she led the session. She didn't just tell us this is how you should be doing it. So everyone shared what they were doing, and much of what most are doing, we are doing here. We have the statements they sign up front, we have it on every course. So that was an important point, to keep it before the student, so that's might not be preventing it, but in a way it is, just by the constant reminder. One thing they did that I thought was interesting, and she said, they chuckled that she remembered the meeting where this idea was proposed, and everyone chuckled, but they did it. They have an academic integrity hotline, which I'm not sure would work at the university level, but Florida Virtual Schools is K-12, so she said it's amazing how many phone calls they get on this hotline. People reporting other people. I'm thinking, first of all, what am I going to do if someone reports it? You know, I go say, John said you're. Anyway, she said their most interesting one was a babysitter called and said the mother is doing all of her children's work. So I don't know what they did about that, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, how could they, say, anyway. One thing she did mention for prevention that we do here, but we haven't really done it online, and Laura and I were just talking about this, is that reporting database. In a face-to-face, we're supposed to report if a traditional student is caught cheating, so that, suppose they did it 10 times, if the other 9 professors don't know, So we're supposed to report, so we have our, is it Smarter Measure or Smarter,
Well, yeah, smarter, software secure.
Software Secure, for proctoring of exams. And so, like, we just got a report today of a student that didn't show her ID card. So I thought, I'm not sure, you know, we're early in the process, but I am at least gonna log that in the database. Then if she continued to do that or something, that's a flag. So we're gonna be building online a database just to kind of report these kinds of things. And then how can we structure, and on their prevention, they have a real cute little video of, and it starts with Abraham Lincoln, you know, and all this stuff, but that they showed all of their students. It's definitely developed for K-12, but she mentioned, sort of like someone else said, we need to hear it more than once, so they try and keep that before the students. They have an entire department dedicated to academic integrity. Yeah. And then how, I keep thinking of others. Another prevention they do is, and I thought this is interesting. I know Kathy Hutchings-Weedle called every online OL student recently to say, how's it going? Well, they call every student every couple of classes and kind of give an oral exam, and they actually get points for it. But so that if mom was doing all the work, and it's not like, you know, what year was Abraham Lincoln born, but kind of a general, they have to discuss the course with them. So just something to think about. And then how can we do it? One thing was mentioned, making the work, and I think I've heard Michelle mention this, a process rather than, you know, you write this paper, but if you saw the outline and you saw the work continuously. So I don't want Jody to do too much better than me, so I gotta hurry to the last one. Okay, the same one Mel talked about iPads. We are going to put that app, the $4.99 app, on all 10 of our checkouts. And I just think this would be so exciting for a faculty to roll those 10 into classroom, hand them out in groups or whatever, and make that movie. And so what we want to do is invite 10 faculty. I'd like to do this before school's out. Give them lunch and have the faculty during that session make a movie and kind of show how we might do that. So that's the plan on that, and it's 10 till, so I want to end with our closing so we can get to the science.
Just hit escape.
Oh, well, I want to show
Oh,
this one.
gotcha.
Okay, this is something one of our keynotes did. I don't remember which one of them. Anyway. And I really like this.
No
It
iron.
made me think. So we have to all put our hands up like this.
The guy from Western Governors.
It was Western Governors. Okay, clap. On 1, 2, 3. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. Rub them together. Put them in your lap and cross your fingers. Now, is your thumb on left or right on top? If your right thumb is on top, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4,
That's the
5,
right way to
6,
do it.
7. Okay, the other way.
Hence the name.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About even, and every time you do that, it always seems to split. You're probably our closest to a psychologist in here. They do have a name, right on top.
Apologist in your.
Okay,
I'm
are you
psychotic, not
Now,
a.
who are the right on top? Okay, those are named sexy. Left on top are named sneaky.
Yeah.
Yeah, sneaky. So anyway, the point though was that we all do it different. Now if you did that again, or even right now, try and clap the other way. Doesn't it feel weird? And his point was we all learn a certain way, we're all a certain way, and perhaps we learned because when we were in the classroom a certain way, and our students, their thumbs are the other way, and we're trying to force them to learn it our way. So I think that's what this whole conference